All right, welcome back. Today we are going to break down our next part of our ratio unit by looking at rates and what they are and what unit rates are and then how we use them. So if you remember from earlier in our unit, a ratio is a quantity that compares different quantities, but typically with a ratio, they're going to have the same unit. So like drops of paint to drops of paint, gallons of paint to gallons of paint, things like that. The difference is with a rate, it's a ratio that's going to compare quantities with different units. So for example, we could look at when you look at your pay rate, right? So we talk about how much you make per hour, how much a basketball player makes per season. Speaking of basketball, we can look at stats and think about what are their averages. How many points are they scoring per game? That would be a rate. And then another rate we use all the time, and you've used in your science class, is speed. So how far a car travels in a certain amount of time. So like distance over time is speed. So those are rates. We start to break rates down even more, and then we look at what's called a unit rate. So the unit rate, the only thing that makes it different is that it is a rate where the second quantity is always going to be 1. So like miles per hour, points per 1 game, dollars per 1 hour of work. Those would all be examples of unit rates. So what we think of with that unit rate meaning a single is we think of something per 1 unit and whatever that unit is. So for example, we could look at miles per hour, or speed would be an example of a unit rate. So let's look here at an example. Emmanuel scored 35 points in 3 games playing basketball. So that 35 points in 3 games is his rate. We want to know what the unit rate is. So how much is he scoring per 1 game? So one thing we can think about is, what do I need to do to my problem to eventually get my denominator equal to 1? Because I want that 1 for that unit rate. Kind of like what we were doing with some of our ratio stuff. So what am I doing to 3 to get to 1? So I'm going to divide by 3. And just like with all of our ratios, if I do it to the bottom, right, if I do it to one number, I have to make sure I also do it to the other number to keep it equivalent. So here, I'm going to take 35 divided by 3. So when I look at taking 35 divided by 3, I know that it should be around 11, because 33 times 11 would be, or 3 times 11 would be 33, so that would be pretty close. So it's going to be a little bit more. So here, our unit rate ends up being around 11.6 or 11 6/10. It's actually a repeating decimal, points per game. So he's scoring almost 12 points per game, but just a little bit under. All right, so what I would encourage you to do right now is go ahead and pause the video, and I want you to try this next problem on your own, looking at what Rosalie is doing, and see if you can write both the rate and the unit rate. All right, so as we look at this, we can see that Rosalie is making $150 for every 4 hours that she works. So that makes her rate $150 for 4 hours. So that's her rate. We want to figure out what the unit rate is. So we want to know how much she makes for 1 hour of work. So once again, I'm going to ask, what do I do to 4 to get to 1? Divide by 4. So I'm going to take 150 divided by 4. And we end up with a value of $37.50. So what that means is Rosalie makes $37.50 per hour, and that's her unit rate.